Welcome back to the Common Good Show, hosted by Guadalupe Roastery, a program that celebrates a fundamental truth. Life is a beautiful gift, full of blessings and trials, learning experiences, and opportunities to grow. This is a show that celebrates the little yet profound influences in our lives that add value, improve our outlook, and encourage us to appreciate everyday blessings from God. These are the conversations that contribute to and highlight the common good, as told through the experiences and words of our special guests. All of our guests share an unwavering commitment to their faith and the acceptance that they're at their best when they put God first in their lives. What is the common good, you might ask? Simply stated, it is the sum total of special conditions that allow people, either as groups or individuals, to reach their fulfillment in its entirety. I would like to welcome John Gargano on this morning. John, thanks so much for being here with us. It is a pleasure. You are not only probably one of the liveliest people I know,
okay,
but but extremely driven, and you're always moving. Just thanks so much for taking your time.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'll dive right into it. Is there something in your everyday life, one little thing, that serves as constant proof to you of God's fruitful, his blessings in your life?
I'd say probably my morning routine.
Okay.
It's kind of an interesting kind of system, and I was recently married in January.
Congratulations.
So thank you. So that it changed a little bit, the dynamic of that. But it's really, for me, some days better than others, but really trying to beat the sun, rise up in the morning.
Yeah.
Before the sun, there is something beautiful about that. And really diving into, your morning prayer. And so I always kind of start the day, wake up before the sun, if I can. Hopefully some days are better than others, but, it is what it is.
You win some, you lose some.
You win some, you lose some, exactly. Waking up, making that pot of coffee, and then just sitting down and just taking 30 minutes for my day before I do anything else, and just stopping and praying. And I think now, with my wife kind of, joining me, it's changed my routine, but in a really special way, and it really is, witness of God's love for me through the love that she shows me.
Yeah.
Just waking up, doing my spiritual reading, drinking my coffee, and then usually, within 20 or 30 minutes, she'll come and join me.
Yeah.
And we'll both just sit there, drink our coffee, and we'll do our morning prayers. It's a really special time for both of us because it helps us to really center ourselves before we go about the craziness of the day.
Right.
As we all know, the days always usually get crazy.
Days go fast.
They go fast.
And especially for you, because you're working pretty much outside every single day, and you're doing 101 things.
Yes, sir.
I'm curious, so obviously it changed when you got married. That is going to be a big part of the morning routine. Was there anything after you got married that was presented itself as a specific challenge? Because obviously it's beautiful to have your wife there with you. But was there anything that initially you had to overcome, remove it, think about it a different way?
I mean, I think women would relate to my wife in this regard, but learning to be clean or cleaner.
Okay.
Making sure, usually I leave stuff here or there, but, trying to be more cognizant of that, and appreciation of my wife, just, trying to be a little bit more, I guess, clean when it comes to not leaving tennis shoes here and tennis shoes there, leaving this thing out or leaving that thing out. So,
yeah.
And then just working on, I think, just schedules. And working on just making, having, when you're single, you're kind of your own calendar, and you can kind of do your own thing, and you can just go. You don't really have to keep anyone, up to date on where you're going or, what you're doing, or you have this meeting and this meeting, and then once you get married, it's kind of you're held accountable a lot more to, hey, this is my schedule, this is what I'm doing. Oh, well, you didn't tell me. Oh, well, I forgot. I'm so sorry. And it's really helped me be better when it comes to organization, just for the fact of just helping my wife be aware of everything that I'm doing, and being aware of everything that she's doing, because we both have pretty busy lives, but at the end of the day, we want to spend time with each other and see each other. And so it's helps us both to really schedule and plan our weeks a lot better. So we do have that time, that one-on-one time, where we can kind of just block out the rest of the world, block out our phones, and just kind of be together, whether that's, going out to Naples and grabbing a bite to eat, or going to the beach, or traveling a little bit, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So
I like the fact that you mentioned your phone, because of course today, like, especially when you're running a business, everything happens on your phone, phone or laptop, but you're always on it.
Yeah.
Do you, just because everyone has their own little way, and I think it is different for everyone, do you have a specific time, like at night when you and your wife like shut the phones off, or like during dinner or something like that? Or?
I would say definitely when we go out, like on dates. I mean, that's usually that main kind of.
Phone's
even
gone.
like the best dates, honestly, and I advise anyone that's listening to do this. The best dates are those that you both leave your phones in the car. Like, don't even take them into the restaurant. You leave them in the glove box.
Okay.
You lock your car. Just going. Like, some of those dates are without a doubt the best dates, because you're fully invested. There's no distractions. Her parents aren't calling, my parents aren't calling. I'm not getting a business call. She's not getting an email on this or that. So it's just complete and utter just closing out the phones. I mean, it's not even a temptation to even look at your phone, because it's not even there.
You can't.
So that's a thing we found is really well. Something I was in the habit of, in a good way, but I've kind of drifted from, is kind of getting in the habit of not looking at your phone the first of the morning, which is very tempting. I mean, everyone wants to look at your phone the first of the morning, because it's like, okay, who's texting? What do I have to fix? What do I have to do?
Right.
But the mornings that I have, avoided looking at my phone for at least the first, even if it's 30 minutes of your day. Because, as soon as you look at that phone, as soon as you have that blue light, hitting your retinas or whatever the science is behind it, you're immediately distracted. And the mornings that I don't go right to my phone, I go right into prayer, have been so much more fruitful, so much more meditative, and has really helped a lot.
That's awesome. Well, and obviously you're in a unique position, and this will kind of like, I'll kind of pull into another question here, but because, I mean, you own and run your own business, it's not like there's a time when you put your phone down, it's not just like, oh, I'm just like being present. It's like you're shutting off that part of your life and focusing on something else. And so I don't know the story, but I know there's an interesting story behind the name and everything. So what was a moment kind of in that process when you felt like a little bit of divine inspiration, or kind of like that Holy Spirit speaking to you, like really guiding you?
So I started my business back in 2017. I started off as Bismarck Landcare. I named it after the Bismarck palm, which I'm a plant nerd. I love all types of plants, especially
That's
palms.
amazing.
Growing up Southwest Florida, I mean, I was around it, surrounded by it. I've been doing this kind of stuff since I was 7 years old.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, because this could be just Dan remembering something really incorrectly, but palm trees are not technically trees,
Correct. Right? Yeah.
That's so wild.
It drives me crazy, and actually my wife makes fun of me for this. I will correct anyone who calls them a tree.
Yeah.
They'll be like, palm trees. I'm like, no, they're not palm trees.
They're not trees.
They're not trees. They're technically monocots, which is like a grass.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's like kind of like one of those like weird facts I get people on all the time, and they're just like, you're just weird. I'm like, I know, but sorry.
Well, I love
sorry.
that. So I'm not originally from Florida, but I moved down here, and we've been like visiting ever since I was little, and it was always palm trees, see them everywhere. And when I was in class that day and learned that it's not a tree, I was
mind blown.
I was like, what?
Mind blown. I know.
It's like,
it's a very large grass.
That is. I was like, it's everywhere. It's in front of this building and that building, and anyway. So that was tangent.
That's kind of the joke among, I guess, landscapers that more so know what they're doing than others. Is if your landscaper's saying palm trees, fire them, because they don't know what they're talking about. You know what I mean? That's
a very creative. That's a good way to.
I sell people on that sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like, hey,
you can be like, listen, I know what's in your front yard.
I'm in the secret. So.
So, well, anyways, so pulling completely back to
So I started in 2017. I started out Bismarck Landcare. And the issue with that is a lot of people just thought I was from Bismarck, North Dakota, like not knowing that there's a Bismarck palm. They're like, oh, you're from North Dakota. I'm like, no, that's. And so as God does with our life, there was a lot of ups and downs and roller coasters and things that happened from 2017 till now. But the short of it was, I got burnt out, never left Florida. I wanted to see, something else other than all the lush green beauty of Florida, which I came to love more when I left. So I left and went to Colorado for 6 months. I did the office job thing, did not like it. It was the most unfruitful job I've ever had. Sitting behind a screen all day was not fun. The beauty of Colorado and being able to hike every weekend was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I really had this kind of epiphany moment of, I really love Florida. I really have a heart for landscaping, and I really missed that kind of creative aspect of it.
Yeah.
So I decided to move back, and then when I moved back is when I really started to think long term about my business of this is what I want to do as a career. This is really what I want to do with my life. This is how I want to provide for my future family. And so I really started thinking a lot more about the name, because I think a name is really important because it really sets you apart in terms of, this is who we are and this is what we're about. And I really wanted a name that related back to my Catholic faith.
Yeah.
And I just, I played around with a lot of things. I was like, should I do the typical thing and say Ave Maria Landcare? I was like, no, I can't do that. That's not the Blessed Mother's name, obviously, it's a beautiful name,
right.
But at the same time, I didn't want, because, when you hear Ave Maria, you think of the university, you think of the town.
Right.
So I didn't want to kind of add one more to that. And I also didn't want to be completely tied to one geographical location.
Right.
I want to be able to serve, all of, Southwest Florida. So I was in Mass. I think it was the 7 p.m. Mass. My now wife and I were in the Ave Maria Parish here. I almost call it the oratory, but it's the parish now.
Yeah.
So we were sitting there, and my favorite song, praise and worship song, forever. I mean, since I can remember, is "Oh God Beyond All Praising."
It's a good one.
I love that song. It's just every single time it comes on,
it's a very good
my
one.
wife will be like, it doesn't matter who it's like. This my friends joke about this because we'll literally be in the pew, is like my wife and I, or my wife and friends, or wife and family, whatever, and we'll sit there, and when that song comes on, I literally do a fist bump because I'm just pumped. I'm like, yes, it's like they did it, they did it. And then when they don't, it's sad. But so I'm listening to it, and one of the lines in there is, and whether our tomorrows be filled with good or ill, we'll triumph through our sorrows and rise to bless you still, to marvel at your beauty and glory in your ways, and make a sacrificial duty, or make a joyful duty our sacrifice of praise.
Yeah.
And I've listened to that song hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And throughout that entire week, I was like, Lord, I know you're gonna inspire me with a name. I was like, I'm not gonna put too much pressure on myself because I know you want this to be named.
Got it.
I was like, you got it. I was like, so I'm not gonna stress about it. And that night when we were in Mass, when they were singing that song, when then they said that rise, it was like this bass chord just rang in my mind and my heart, and I was just like, that's it. I was like, it's rise.
Yeah.
And everything that we do is grounded in that stanza of that song,
Yeah.
No matter what happens in life, no matter what happens with the business, we're going to triumph through it because we're going to bless the Lord through our work.
Yeah.
And bring glory to his name in everything that we do.
Yeah.
So in any interaction with customers and interaction with employees, landscaping, it can be a tough business. It can be kind of cutthroat.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't see it as that. I want to bring glory to God in my work. And so any customer I meet, any employee I have, it's seeing things kind of like JP2. Seeing things in the lens of that Christ would see people,
Yeah.
And bringing that humanity to it, because I think a lot of times it's kind of a dog-eat-dog world, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be about that. That's not me.
Yeah.
I want to be the company that does the right thing. Again, not just to the customer, but the employees.
Yeah.
So taking care of them, making sure they have what they need. And making sure customers have what they need, and through that, be that example and try to be as Christ-like as I can. Yeah. Obviously, I fail every day out of it because, we're all sinners. But you know what? You get up. We try. And that's what it's about, is you really have to, you just getting up every day and saying, I'm going to make the best. I'm going to do the best that I can today, yeah, and glorify your name from it.
Yeah.
And so, which is why I love the name Rise so much, is just whenever I talk about the company or I see that thing, it always brings me back to what am I about?
Yeah.
So
it's a constant reminder for yourself as well.
Correct.
As everything else. And I think there's a life-giving aspect, not just to the way you think about the work, but obviously, like, just versus working in Colorado behind the desk versus here, there's a fullness of life. And then literally with the plants, you're bringing things to life. And there's a very creative aspect of what you do too, because you're not just like weed eating, like cutting shrubs. You're actually doing some like designing stuff as well, right?
Yeah, and that's a big thing for me, and that's what I'm really getting into. And that's kind of, I mean, we do maintenance. No one really likes maintenance. It's monotonous, it's boring,
evil.
you know, necessary evil is a good way to put it. You know, especially if it's maintenance on like stuff we've done, like installs, that's great, I love that. But for the most part, my passion is in the design. And so I do a lot of 3D renderings, which is really fun. And to see a customer's excitement when you take, you know, after your initial consult and you go back, because a lot of companies don't do what we do or even know it exists. And so a lot of customers are like blown away when we give them a 3D rendering of what we had talked about a few weeks ago, and they're like, "What?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, this is the landscape."
Yeah.
And so to see them excited even before a shovel hits the ground that's what gets me excited. It really invigorates me to strive to be a better designer, to provide that for them.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it gives them a glimpse too of what that finished product's going to be, and it's like, I don't want to go too deep, but there's a faith in what you're doing because they know what it's like. They're like, I know it's going to be good. It's going to look like this, and so that it kind of elevates the entirety of the relationship.
It does. Well, it starts it off on the right foot because, you know, I had a customer in Fort Myers, and when I came and we did the console, I think they were a little taken aback because they're like, okay, this guy's like, you know, in his 20s.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's a little young dude. Like, do we trust him? Like, you know, we deal with, you know, they're used to dealing with, you know, 40-something-year-olds who've, you know, seasoned guys, you know, whatever. The big conglomerate companies.
The proof is in the darkness of the neck.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
So much time in the sun.
There's a lot there. So they see me come up, they're like, okay, who's this kid?
Yeah.
And I had that happen just a few weeks ago, and I said, okay, well, you know, what's your vision? What are you thinking? And I took all of their ideas, I took everything in, and I mean, I 3D rendered it, and I gave it to them, and they were shocked, and they were blown away, and they're like, okay, this guy actually knows what he's doing because we've never seen this before. Because a lot in the industry, especially in this area, everything's hand drawings.
Yeah.
There's some 3D like apps, but they're nowhere near like what we can do.
A full design
and 3D rendered, which for the most part looks pretty lifelike.
Okay.
And so that is what really convinces people to be like, okay, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So
I think one of the things that can often like get lost, especially in society today, is the value in the sanctity in doing what you're supposed to do, doing whatever your job is, whether it's landscaping, whether it's helping put together a show, whether it's, you know, insurance, but doing it to the very best of your ability and doing it not only for the other person, but to serve God. It's like you don't have to look somewhere for like, there's no key perfect job that's going to unlock the happiness and whatnot. It's in serving what you're called to do, like right here and now, and what's right in front of you.
No, I think you said that really well, and I think a lot of people, I wish, live their life, I guess, that way. And I think, that's what I love so much about Jose Maria Escriva, is he really touches on that a lot. I think it was in Friends of God. He says, the garbage man can be just as holy as the cardinal.
Yeah.
And I think that has so much weight to it, because I think a lot of people, and I see it, you know, at the university, I see it in high schools, a lot of kids and a lot of adults really think that, like you said, there's like, you have to find that like thing, and that's not what it's about. And they think that like this one thing or this one task is gonna bring them fulfillment, and they think that they have to be a lawyer, or they have to be a doctor, or they have to make all this money. That's not what it's about. And you know, I've met some guys, I mean, some of the happiest people I've met are, you know, I wouldn't say I haven't met any garbage men, but like are guys that are just out in the drudges of life, just doing their best, providing for their families, working with their hands, and you're like, and you kind of, you're like, well, why is he happy? It's like, well, he's doing what he loves. You know, you go to some of these third world countries. I got the opportunity to go to Calcutta with the university, and some of the poorest people I ever met, but at the same time, some of the happiest.
Yeah.
Because they really have their lives ordered to realize it's not about their phone, because they don't have one.
Right.
It's not about stuff, because they really don't have anything other than what's on their back.
Nah.
It's really about their relationship with God, and through that, their relationship with others. Yeah. And I mean, that's, if there was one thing like that I could tell anyone, it's you know, you don't have to be successful in the eyes of the world. You know, you just having a few good friends and doing what the Lord is calling you to do, that'll bring you all the satisfaction and the fulfillment that you desire.
Yeah.
Just the problem is, especially in the United States, people just look for it in the wrong places.
Yeah.
So.
And guilty as charged.
I'm preaching to the choir to myself right now. You know, I'm just as guilty, because it's so easy to fall into that trap. You know, it's so easy, and it's mainly because of your phone. You know,
it doesn't help.
It doesn't help at all.
I had a friend text me a couple months ago, and they were seeing some stuff that, because I post and talk a lot about little moments when I realize, like, shoot, like, wow, whether it's a realization of like how God's working in my life, or a realization of how like I wasn't paying attention to the right thing, and they reached out. And they were kind of confused by it, and they're like, "Well, you don't really seem like you're talking about this stuff and doing this." And I was like, "Don't misunderstand me. The reason I'm sharing this and talking about it is because I needed it. It's because I needed to hear it." And so
exactly.
the click in my mind, that constant reminder, like me just putting it into words so that other people can hear it, is, yes, I'd like others to hear it and be able to feel that, like that moment that I had, but it's also so that I can hear it too.
Remind yourself. Yeah.
I was like, I
keeps
need
you accountable.
Exactly. I was like, I need this just as much as like, and so, yeah, 100%. And it's one of those things where I think as men, especially just as faithful men, we have a tendency, and now like, and I'm single, so I don't have to worry about that. But especially you now with a wife, and like you're building for a family, there's that tendency to take control and to want to plan and have everything ordered, because you're like, if I can do this, make it like, this is how we're going to grow. This is, which is good. Like, that's a good thing. But I think in my life, I'm not calling people out. This is spoken for myself. There's a tendency to then gravitate towards that becoming the focus of our lives. And then then you start looking for that one job, or that one thing that's going to fulfill you or make you happy, or once I get here, this is going to be better. And it's just...
Well, and God has a sense of humor. And so usually when you try to control things the most is when things fall apart the quickest. And that's something I'm there, because I'm the same way, you know, especially I think most guys are like that. It's just we're planners.
Yeah.
We have a plan, we have a vision, we set out to achieve it, and then God laughs at us when he throws 10,000 obstacles, and it's like, all right, carry your cross. And you're just like, okay. Which is why I think it's so important to have that faith life. If you don't have that faith life, it's hard, because that's what brings you back and gets you centered to realize, okay, life is not easy. You know, we have to carry our crosses, and there's going to be a lot of turbulence. You know, no one has an easy life, and so you gotta just have faith in God at the end of the day.
What a difference between joy and happiness, too, though, right? Because I think happiness comes and goes. Happiness it's a very fickle emotion.
It is.
But what I can see in just the way you talk about your work and the direction that you're going right now, there's a sense of joy, and even like. What you do it's not easy. You're outside all day.
Yep.
For the most part. It's wicked hot. It's physical labor. But there's an immense amount of joy in it. And someone can look at that and be like, oh, like that would be the worst thing I would want to do. And you're like, this is so life-giving.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. I really wouldn't.
What is there something particular about your work that like, or let me just say, like, what regarding your work is something that like you're most proud of?
I think being able to take something, you know, as Mother Teresa said, it's being the pencil in God's hand. So being able to take, you know, a blank canvas or a lot of what would be a tumultuous canvas of just gnarly bushes and gnarly landscaping, being able to, you know, cultivate that area into something that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And to being able to put, you know, my name on something, which then like brings and to bring that, how do I say this? I guess that Catholic testimony to that job, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because like people know that like I'm Catholic. Like when I'm there, like people know I'm Catholic. People know like I have a strong faith. And so for them to, you know, see that and they're like, wow, like what happened there? And especially like a lot of my guys too. Like a lot of customers, they love talking to my guys because the guys I hire are just great people.
Yeah.
And they're like, something's different about this company. I mean, that's you know, anyone that you meet, when you meet someone that's faithful and really living out like a joyful, intentional like vocation of what they're, whether that's a doctor, whether that's a nurse, whether that's a garbage man, a construction worker, a lawyer, whatever it is, you know, higher education teacher, what have you. When you encounter someone that's, like you said, is truly joyful, like in their what they're doing, it's like a breath of fresh air, and it really gets people to stop and think, because that's happened to me. You know, when I've had those interactions, I'm like, whoa, like this person, like they have it, like they have it, and it's in what they usually have in common is they have a strong prayer life. And I don't want to just say it's exclusively Catholic. I love my Catholic faith, but like people that are genuinely trying to know, love, and serve God and put Him first, oh my gosh, it's a breath of fresh air. You know, because it comes out in their work. So for me, again, like kind of going back to your question, is to be able to see that transformation, and to be like, wow, like this we were able to do this. Like, thank you, Lord, like for letting us like work today, so like to just admire this like beauty that's now before us. So
it's all, and it's great too, because you have this finished, you have that,
there's a
that
concrete
before and
there's a concrete like whoa, you know what I mean, and that's I think why like what I do, I find so much value and so much fulfillment in it, is to be able to see like, you know, the before of depression, you know what I mean, to like, and then the after of like this beauty and lushness of, you know, vegetation. And for some people, like, oh, okay, cool. But like for me, like it amps me up. It amps me up.
Like this is
awesome.
Almost a little.
That's a little fist bump.
Fist bump in
fist
the pew.
happens.
Like,
yes,
I got it.
A little fist bump happens.
What is kind of that breath of fresh air, right? That brings. What are 2 or 3 characteristics that bring that life into your work, but something that you think people, regardless of what they're doing, and it doesn't have to be 2 or 3, but like if there's a couple, regardless of what they're doing, really could like level it up.
In terms of like anything they're doing.
Yeah, just general characteristics, whether it's about like the attitude towards work or about like the people, or that sort of thing.
I think it's when you realize that everything that you do, no matter what vocation that you are doing, has a rippling effect. Like not just necessarily in those that you're coming in contact with in that moment, or not necessarily people you're coming in contact with, but the job that you're doing is affecting those that you're doing it for. Is realizing that the way that you approach that has a rippling effect and can completely change someone's day, whether positive or negative. And then so doing could change other people down the road. So realizing the effect of your words and your actions, and realizing that, you know, when you cut a corner here, cut a corner there, it'll catch up with you. You know what I mean? And so it's understanding, you know, doing the right thing, giving your full self to it. In high school, I went to Bishopboro High School in Fort Myers, which is down the road, and their motto was non exudat. And that, you know, that was St. Francis de Sales's motto for life. We had a cross-country coach, and his whole thing was, you know, you got to live life, you know, non exudat, which is like you will not fail in the attempt. And I think a lot of times people get wrapped up, or they kind of get cold feet because I don't want to fail. Like I don't want to fail, but the thing is failure moves you farther along. And so I think the beauty of and then what St. Francis de Sales is trying to say is like no matter how many times you fall down, no matter how many times you screw up or fail, if you are trying to give 100%, 110% of yourself to the task at hand, like you're not going to fail, because again, failure moves you forward and you get better from that. What really matters is, are you giving your whole self, and are you doing it for the glory of God? And that's something that for me, like, not that non-exudate. I know it's, for some it's like, oh well, that's like your high school's motto, but like, hey, like, it's a good. They had a good motto. It's a good motto. You know what I mean? And I did read Introduction to the Devout Life, so I feel like I can use that motto exclusively away from my high school.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
You're like, I learned it there, and it brought me to this.
Yeah, I went deeper into it with that Introduction to Devout Life. I think it's also called Philothea, as some people know it as. But and that's what it's about, is realizing that, hey, like, life is hard. You're gonna get the crap kicked out of you. You're gonna get knocked down multiple times. It's not gonna stop with old age or when you get to a certain point. You're gonna fail. Every day, I think in some way, some human fails, but it's getting back up, moving forward, and just striving to be that person that God is calling you to be.
And I think it's reflected in a lot of like the self-help stuff that you can find and read. You'll find people saying, at least in my experience, when you're looking at the right ones, a lot of people will say, make a dream or your goal so big it terrifies you. And not like, it can get confusing, but like so big that there's a great chance that, like, as you're sitting there, you're like, I don't even know how I'm gonna get close. But like you said, if that's my goal, if my goal is, and we'll just make like a really easy example, but if your goal was in the next month, $100 million in landscape design, that's a lot. But if you chase that $100 million in 1 month, wherever you end up, even if it falls short, so technically failing that goal, is probably further along than you would have been had you just been like, we'll shoot for like a reasonable number and like whatnot. And so it's the old, like, shoot for the moon, aim and you land among the stars. And it's true. Doesn't take away from how terrifying it can be.
Oh, it's terrifying.
It doesn't change that, but it sets your mind on like, I think it allows room for God to really work in our lives. Because when we set it out, like when we decide that I'm throwing this out of my hands, well then the guy who has it all in his hands can actually do something with it.
Well, and I think that's a problem with a lot of the world, and I think because of technology, because of our phones, we get lulled into like being comfortable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we love our comforts. We love, the safety. We don't like taking risks.
Yeah.
Is it Cardinal Ratzinger? You weren't made for comfort. The world offers you comfort. You weren't meant for comfort. You were made for greatness.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true, because I think a lot of times, and I think I see it a lot too, especially with guys, is you get almost lulled into this, I'm just gonna do what's safe. I'm gonna do what's comfortable. I'm gonna do what's, because we don't.
And it's not. And nowadays it's all like, no, I'm just doing me.
Yeah, I'm just doing exactly. But like, you're never gonna really get anywhere or really be satisfied by just being okay.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's honestly, it's a perfect quote too, because it's. Yeah, the reality, we've heard it too, right? Good is the enemy of great, great's the enemy of best, but it's so, and even we get to a certain point, because I've done this too, where we start to improve, we start to accept the challenges and the difficulties, and so we start running through it, and we go, and we'll fail, and we'll make mistakes, but we keep going. But then you go through it for a little while, and you reach a spot, like for me at one point, it was like about being healthy and being in the gym, and I reached a spot where I was like, much better than where it was. And so I was like, this is good. And then 2 years later, I realized I really just stopped. Like, I was still staying consistent, but it was elevated from where I was. So it was like, I was kind of like lying to myself. I'm like, yeah, still doing good, still pushing it. But it wasn't.
Yep.
I had gotten to a new comfortable
And you just wanted to maintain.
Yeah.
You can't maintain.
No, it just keeps going.
I don't know who says. I think a lot of people. It's like, well, if you maintain, you're dying.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. The moment you like quit moving forward. Yeah. What? And that goes for anything too.
It does.
It doesn't matter whether it's your faith life or whether it's work.
Well, and I think too, this you were saying kind of reminded me of a quote by Jordan Peterson, where he kind of talks about what is it? You can't compare yourself to where others are right now, because they have their own different things going on. He goes, the only thing you can do is compare yourself to who you were yesterday. That's it. And I think a lot of times, especially with technology too, it's like on Instagram you scroll like, oh man, that guy just bought a new car, or like that girl like I went to high school with just did this, or that guy did this, or this, and they started this business and they just blew up, or like these guys started this business, and it's all, whatever it is, we're constantly comparing ourselves to others. And I think that also kind of shocks us into like, oh man, they did it, I can't do that. But it's like, okay, well, where were you yesterday? Have you improved?
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's what it's about, is being able to have that time in the morning to, drink your cup of coffee, do your meditation, and be like, okay, what am I going to do today to be better than I was yesterday? Kind of like you're saying, like you did all that growth in that year, and then you stop, and then you're like, okay, I'm just going to maintain. It's like, okay, but like you're not getting better. You know what I mean? And that's what it's about, being a better person every day.
And I think if we think about like our life, me sitting here talking to you, this is 100% of my life. This is who I am today. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing. And it's not my thought process. I saw it somewhere, but somebody was like, all right, be 1% better tomorrow, whatever it is, 1%. And by the end of the year, you were 365% better. And if we think of today as 100% of my life, that's 3.5 times of what it is.
Good.
And it's all
that's
in the,
pretty good.
Right? And it's all in the little things.
It is.
It doesn't have to be a big job or something
Correct.
else. It's in the fruitful little moments, just one tiny thing. I love that.
No, that's good. That's real good.
And it's not my original thought, but it was.
We'll give you credit.
Oh,
we'll give you credit.
I brought it up. There's a speech that Matthew McConaughey did, and I like it because he talks about who his hero was. I think it's all over Facebook. I'm sure people have seen it. But he's like, it's me in 10 years. And then he just makes the point of saying his hero is he's never going to be his hero. And he's always growing. But that kind of sets the bar like way up there. He's always going to be moving forward. It's always, can I be better? Can I do more? And not in the sense of like, not in the sense of what I'm doing today isn't good enough, which pulls into serve today, what you were saying before, serve today with everything you've got. And then tomorrow, 1% better.
Yep.
1% better, and you can change the world.
You definitely can change the world, because that's just 1 year.
Yeah.
Imagine if you did that for 10 years straight.
That's a lot.
So that's a lot.
That's a lot of percent.
That's a lot of percent.
I'm curious, is there a specific person that's been a big influence or mentor in your life?
Oh man, I mean, I've had a few. I would say that in terms of impact, in terms of like my whole life, I'd say it was actually in high school. Father Joe Beatty, he was my cross country coach. He was the one that really instilled with me, with non-extra jet. I mean, he would harp on it all the time. But he was the kind of person that he got you to do your best, because disappointing him was, it was gut-wrenching.
It was worse.
It was worse. I mean, when a 7-year-old priest who can sprint faster than you, if you can disappoint him, I mean, that's so. He was a good mentor to me, and he had died before my sophomore year, and I to this day I remember that conversation, the last words he ever spoke to me, which I kind of keep with me to this day, is, and on top of everything else that he taught me, was always, attack life, set your jaw like flint, live your life that that God is calling you to. But I kind of refer to it as like Father Beatty's like last teaching, I guess. we were just talking, and he said he would always say at the end of every practice, he goes, "I will see you tomorrow. I'll see you on tomorrow. I'll see you on tomorrow." It was kind of guilting you into like making sure you actually showed up for practice, and you're like, "Dang it." So I was leaving practice, and I said, have a great weekend, Father. And he would always say, "Well, we'll see you on Monday. We'll see you on Monday." And he didn't say that, which in the moment I didn't really pick up on. But looking back, I was like, he didn't say that. And he stopped and he looked at me and he said, "John, I'm counting on you." And I said, "Okay." I was like, "Cool." I was like, "Okay." He's like, "No, I'm counting on you." I was like, "All right." He goes, "No, seriously, like you have to like make sure you live life that's worth living, and giving glory, and with that jaw set like flint." He goes, "I'm counting on you." I was like, "Okay, thanks, Father." And I was like,
at the moment,
in the moment, I was like, "This is kind of like cool, like whatever."
Thanks.
And so, get through the weekend. We come in, that Monday, and I was in there for the morning daily mass. He would say it before school started, and I was in there and I'm looking around. It's like usually start at 7. It's 7:05, and I'm like, okay, where's Father? Like morning mass was always like
Right.
He was there like 10 minutes early every day.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Where's Father?" And I'm like, "This is weird." And finally, someone came in like, "Well, we can't get a hold of him. We don't know where Father's at, but mass is canceled." And so I went out about my day. I go to I think it was my first period class, and an announcement on the intercom came in. And it was all cross country and track members. "We need you to go to the chapel." And I was like, "Okay, this is weird." And so we go to the chapel, and that's when the assistant coach came in. He goes, "The police found Father, dead in his home," and it rocked my absolute world. I don't cry a lot. I'm not a crier. That's something I told my wife. I was like, I've literally cried like I can count on one hand. Probably twice in high school. Once when Father was, passed, and then, when I got married. But other than that, like I'm not someone that cries a lot. But I just broke down, and just that whole day it was whirlwind. But I really started reflecting on that last conversation with him. I'm just like, all right, I think Father knew he was going, and he knew that that I needed that, and I needed to hear that. And that's something that's really grounded me throughout since that moment, sophomore year of high school, through college, and now in my life. It's almost like I got to keep pushing because I can't disappoint Father.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was definitely a moment for me. And I'd say because of that, I'd say in terms of impact, he had such an impact on my life in that short time I knew him, and then ever since then, kind of always going back to that of you have to live a life worth living. You can't just sit by. You have to attack it. You have to have a jaw set like flint. Because at the end of the day, like, what's the point of just being mediocre? You know what I mean? You gotta attack it.
There's no, and I think, thank you for sharing that story, because that's really powerful, and I think it highlights the importance of specific. Because you were kind of laughing before, like, oh, it was my high school motto, but like for me, one of my, he will always be one person that kind of like, for you, his name was Mike Wally. He was my U12 to U14 soccer coach, so Coach Wally, and probably one of the last great old school coaches. Before it got to the point where, like, parents would get mad if you practice late or whatever, like he was a hard.
They don't make them like they used to.
No, and he didn't win. Now we had 2 undefeated seasons, so we didn't ever have to deal with the losing. But win or lose, as he said, he's like, we're going to be the hardest working team, and it wasn't about like. It wasn't a club team like with all the best players. We had a whole range of people, and he never got upset for people trying something, ever. You could fail so miserably, and whether it was in a game or a match. Now he was very directive in a game. Like if you messed up, then there would obviously make it happen, fix it. But even in practices, like you could try something, do whatever. The moment you started to do half-hearted things, everybody was running.
Game over.
The amount of times we stayed late. I remember one time specifically. There was he was doing a drill with us where we practiced like trapping the ball on our chest and letting it drop to the ground. And I think I was guilty as well as like 1 or 2 other people. But it was just a long practice, it was a hot summer day, and so like we just kind of being lazy about it. We stayed an extra like 2 hours after practice. It was dark. There was one light on the pitch left, and all it was, we were in a circle, like just in the line and just doing chest for an additional 2 hours. He's like, we will not do things that way.
Wow.
And that's something kind of like what Father told you. When I found myself in situations like when I kind of plateaued on that working out, I was like, man, Coach Wally would be
You'd be so mad at me right now.
Really upset. I'm like, I'm not doing this.
Well, and I think too, it's like I was saying, like they don't make them like they used to, you know.
No.
But it kind of like how he had that impact on you, and then, you know, Father Beatty had that impact on me. It's also kind of realizing that, you know, who's going to be those guys for the, you know, upcoming generations.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I think it is guys like you and I.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think in realizing all the people that are in your life, you know what I mean? Whether that's friends, whether that's, you know, CCD kids that you teach, or whether there are people like coaching a team. It's realizing you have way more impact than you realize. Yeah. Like you said, like he was just your youth 12, 14 soccer coach. Like who would have thought that, you know, you'd still be talking about that like today? I don't think people realize how much of an effect they really can have. Yeah. So,
and it's not, to kind of bring it full circle, it's not because of he wasn't like, he didn't come in as like, hey, this is the best soccer coach around town. No, it wasn't anything special. It's in what he was doing then and there. And when his son was on the team too, and he wasn't any easier on his son, but it's like, it's in what we're called to do each day. And that's it. It's nothing special. It's nothing. It's just by serving, whether it's landscaping, whether it's getting this opportunity to talk together, or whether it's me working on coffee, like, that's all it is.
That's what it's all about.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much.
Of course.
That wraps us up for time.
Oh, sweet.
But this was amazing. I appreciate you spending your morning with us. And
of course.
Hope you have a great rest of your day.
I hope you do too.
Cool deal.
Let's make some coffee.
Look at it.